They claimed the luck, I carried the truth, and that was more than enough. They laughed at my little $5 habit, called it childish, embarrassing. Then one morning, everything changed. A piece of paper they thought meant nothing suddenly meant everything. And just like that, I wasn't mom anymore, I was in their way. If you've ever been underestimated, forgotten, or taken for granted by your own family, don't scroll past this story. Hit subscribe, leave a comment if this hits home, and share it with someone who's been counted out, because we don't chase drama, we reclaim truth. And trust me, this one's worth staying for. I was halfway through my morning coffee when my son told me I was an embarrassment. If you keep scratching that garbage, you're out. We're done supporting your fantasy life. His voice didn't shake. It was calm, cold, like he'd been rehearsing it. I looked up from the kitchen table, still holding the coin I'd used to scratch off a $5 lottery ticket I'd picked up at the gas station down on Valencia Road. It was part of my routine. Walk, buy a ticket, come back. Sometimes I won $2. Most days I won nothing. But it gave me something small to look forward to. A flicker of control in a life that had become quieter than I ever imagined. Travis stood over me like a landlord collecting rent, except this was my son. The same boy I once wrapped in 3 layers of flannel during winter nights in Flagstaff because we couldn't afford central heat. The same boy who used to cry if I wasn't the one who tucked him in. That boy was gone. And the man in his place barely looked at me when he spoke. Behind him, Amber leaned against the fridge, arms crossed, eyes sharp with quiet judgment. She didn't say a word. She never really had to. Her face did all the talking. I glanced down at the scratcher. Didn't even win anything, just a ritual. Just mine. I bought it with my own money, I said quietly, trying not to sound defensive. From the envelope I keep in the drawer. I didn't take anything from the grocery money. Travis scoffed. You don't have your own money, Ma. You live here. We pay the bills. You eat our food. You want to gamble? Use your pension. Oh, wait, you don't have one. He smiled like that was a punchline. It wasn't about $5. It never was. It was about making me feel small. Amber finally spoke, voice sugar-coated with venom. Maybe it's time to find a new routine, June. Something less childish. I sat there, eyes burning, fingers clenched under the table. I didn't trust my voice enough to speak, not without crying. So I didn't say a word. I just folded the losing ticket and slipped it into my sweater pocket. They walked away like the conversation was over. Like I was over. The air in that house suddenly felt stale, heavy. I looked around at the worn couch I helped them pick out when they moved in the baby pictures of their daughter Jenna. I printed and framed the basil plant on the windowsill I watered every morning. My hands had been in every corner of that house, but none of it felt like mine anymore. I used to cook every night, used to walk Jenna to school, used to keep the garden alive. But I was starting to realize those were just chores to them, not contributions, just noise they didn't hear anymore. I took my coffee to the back porch. The Arizona sun hadn't yet hit full blaze, but I could already feel its warmth through my slippers. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded ticket again. Not worth anything, but I held it like it mattered, because to me it did. People think loneliness hits you like a crash, but for me it came like a draft under a closed door, bit by bit until you realize the warmth is gone, until you're sipping coffee in a house you helped build, being told you've overstayed your welcome. That night I didn't sleep. Not really. I laid in bed, eyes on the ceiling, heart heavier than I could carry. I heard them laughing in the living room, glasses clinking, a movie playing, life going on, without me. And I kept thinking not about the fight, not about the scratch ticket, but about the fact that they didn't even notice I hadn't spoken since, that I had become that invisible. They thought they were putting me in my place. What they didn't know was I was already planning my next move, not out of spite, not even revenge, just survival. And in that silence, a seed of something else took root, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. The next morning, I swept the kitchen like nothing had happened. Amber walked past me in her usual silk robe, tapping on her phone with long, perfect nails, not even glancing in my direction. She didn't offer a good morning, didn't ask if I needed anything. That part of the routine had ended a long time ago. Travis had already left for work, or that's what he told me. Lately, his job seemed more flexible than it used to be. More lunches, more time at home, more whispering behind closed doors. I cleaned quietly, wiping crumbs off counters, rinsing the same plate twice just to keep my hands busy. I didn't trust my thoughts when they were still. They wandered toward places too sharp, too painful. So I kept moving. That afternoon, I left the house and walked the 4 blocks to Marston's Quick Stop, the gas station where I always bought my tickets. The clerk, a young woman named Eliza, smiled at me. "Your usual Miss June." That small sentence nearly broke me, because for 5 seconds, someone remembered me, not for cooking, not for babysitting, just for being June, the woman who came in every Tuesday and Thursday to buy a wild chance scratcher. I nodded and gave her a $5 bill from the floral pouch I kept tucked in my cardigan pocket. I signed the back of the ticket right there on the counter like I always did, just in case, I used to say. Eliza grinned. "Good luck." "I probably won't need it," I said, "but I'll take it." And I walked home. That evening, I tucked the ticket into the zipper pouch of my knitting bag and placed the bag on the armchair in my room like always. A habit, a small gesture that made the day feel complete. But something about that night felt off. After dinner, boxed lasagna, Amber picked up from the freezer aisle. Travis disappeared into the garage with his laptop. Amber poured herself a glass of red and settled on the couch, eyes on her phone, fingers moving fast. I sat in the corner knitting, watching, feeling that same draft under the door that had started to chill every corner of my life. At 1:23 a.m., I woke to a sound, soft, just enough to stir me. A floorboard creaked, a drawer opened, and then silence. I sat up in bed and listened. My bedroom door was cracked. Through it, I could see the hallway dimly lit by the motion nightlight. Shadows passed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched as Amber slipped out of the laundry room, something in her hand. She paused, glanced down the hall toward my room. Then she walked away. The next morning, I checked my knitting bag. My zipper pouch had been opened. The ticket was gone. I stood there, heartbeat heavy and loud in my ears. I didn't panic. I didn't scream. I just sat back down and waited. I made breakfast like always. Toast, coffee, scrambled eggs. Neither of them showed up to eat. At noon, I saw Amber step outside, dressed sharp. Travis followed. They didn't say where they were going, but they were dressed like people who expected to make an impression. And I knew. They were going to the lottery office. Not long after the landline rang, Amber's voice overly casual. "Hey, June, just checking in. Have you seen that ticket you scratched yesterday? You might have misplaced it. Or maybe you gave it to us. You remember, right?" I didn't answer her. I just hung up the phone. They weren't even trying to lie well. They were testing the waters, seeing how much I remembered, hoping I'd doubt myself. By evening, the house was full of quiet buzz, laughter behind closed doors, champagne glasses in the sink. I heard them clinking from my room, a celebration muffled but unmistakable. They thought I was too old to fight back, too tired, too soft. What they didn't know, what they had never really understood, was that I'd spent my entire life getting through worse. I raised a son with no help after my husband died in a construction fall. I worked 2 jobs to afford braces for a boy who now stood in a kitchen I helped pay for, calling me a burden. I'd been invisible before, but this time I had something they couldn't erase. I still had the photo. 3 mornings ago at Marston's, I had taken a picture of the scratcher. I always did. It was silly, like a mini journal. Just something to prove the ticket was real, that I had played. A way to remember small moments in a life most people forgot I was living. In that photo, the numbers were unscratched, but my name written in blue pen was clear on the back. Date stamped, store location visible, time embedded in the metadata. And that was when I felt the shift. Not rage, not revenge, just a bone-deep resolve. They had stolen something from me, but I had kept the truth, and I wasn't going to hand that over. Not this time. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake in bed, eyes wide in the dark, my fingers curled tightly around the edge of the blanket like I was bracing for impact. Every creak of the house sounded louder. Every shift of the wind outside felt like it might blow my whole world over. But it didn't. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't frozen. I was focused. By morning, I had a plan. Not one built on anger or revenge, but something better: certainty. I walked to my closet and pulled down the old ceramic tin I kept on the top shelf behind winter scarves I hadn't touched in years. Inside, tucked between a few worn bills and an expired insurance card, was my backup phone, a cheap flip phone with a camera that barely worked, but it stored everything. And in its gallery, the photo I'd taken at the gas station. I opened it, thumbed to the third image, and there it was, my wild chance scratcher, unmarked, crisp, on the countertop at Marston's, time-stamped, my name written in careful blue ink along the back. It was mine, all of it. And now I had proof. I sat with that photo for a long time, longer than I needed to, just letting the truth settle in. Not the money, not the numbers, the truth. They thought they'd taken everything, but they hadn't taken me. After breakfast, oatmeal and black coffee, the usual, I walked calmly to the hall closet and pulled down the small gray box where I kept old receipts, greeting cards, and odds and ends most people would have thrown out. I wasn't most people. I found the store receipt for the gas station from that morning right where I'd folded it behind the utility bill. $5 cash withdrawal. 9:42 a.m. Same date, same time. I slipped it into a file folder along with the printed photo from the phone. Then I opened the drawer under the microwave where I kept a thumb drive, plugged it into my flip phone, and saved the photo and metadata copy. Next came the hard part. I needed the video. You see, a few months earlier, I'd bought a tiny camera online barely bigger than a quarter. I'd originally set it up in the kitchen after my medication kept going missing. I never accused anyone, never said a word, just quietly placed it above the spice rack pointing toward the hallway. And thank God I never took it down. That night, the night Amber snuck into my room, I had the camera recording. I retrieved the micro SD card, plugged it into the old laptop Travis had given up on, said it was too slow, and waited for the screen to load. There it was, footage of Amber in my room, flipping through my knitting bag, pulling out the ticket, examining the back with her phone light, her face fully visible. The timestamp matched the night I'd heard the noise. I watched it again and again, not to torture myself, not to stew in betrayal, but to make sure I saw what was really there. She knew what she was doing. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't confusion. It was a decision. I saved the video to the same thumb drive, added the photo and receipt, and labeled the folder, Claim Proof, June Merritt. It was around noon when I made the call. I sat at the kitchen table. Yes, the same one where I used to serve Travis cinnamon toast when he was 6, and dialed the number listed on the Arizona Lottery Commission website. My fingers trembled slightly, but my voice didn't. A woman answered. Arizona Lottery. Claims. How can I help you today? I gave her my name, my ticket number, the store location, the date, the exact time of purchase. Then I paused. I believe my ticket was stolen, I said, but I have documentation, photos, video, and receipts, and I'd like to report a disputed claim. There was a long silence on the other end. Then the woman's tone changed, gentler, more focused. Ms. Merritt, if you have the original photo and time-stamped evidence, please do not discard anything. We can open a claim investigation immediately. I wrote down the case number she gave me, saved the email she sent, printed it twice, and then I waited. But I didn't wait like a victim. I waited like someone who had already won, just not the way they expected. That night, I ate alone in the dining room. Travis and Amber were gone, probably out celebrating a win that wasn't legally theirs. There were new packages by the door, clothes, gadgets, a bottle of champagne peeking from the bag. They were acting fast, spending fast. But I didn't touch a thing. I simply folded the email confirmation and slipped it under the sugar jar. By the time they realized what was coming, it would already be too late. Because this time, I wasn't going to raise my voice. I was going to raise the truth. And they wouldn't even hear it coming. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The sky was still soft with that Arizona blue haze, and the house was silent except for the humming fridge and a clock ticking on the wall. For once, I didn't feel tired. I felt ready. Travis and Amber were still out, probably sleeping off champagne and stolen glory. I had no idea how far they'd gone with the lie. Did they already claim the money? Did they forge my name? Or worse, assume the name didn't matter? They were about to find out how wrong they were. I dressed slowly. Ironed slacks, cardigan, low-heeled shoes. I brushed my hair neatly, tied it back the way I used to when I still worked reception at Dr. Lohman's clinic. I didn't want to look like a victim when I walked into the gas station. I wanted to look like a woman with purpose. By 8:15 a.m., I was at Marston's Quick Stop. Eliza was at the register again, halfway through stocking gum near the counter. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "Miss June. Back for another chance?" I shook my head. "Actually, I need a little help, sweetheart." I explained what had happened briefly, carefully. Told her I'd bought the Wild Chance scratcher on Tuesday morning. Same time as always. Told her I'd already signed the back, kept the receipt, taken a photo. Told her it was missing now. She blinked, then frowned. "You want me to check the footage?" I nodded. "If that's possible. I just need one frame. One image showing I bought it, paid cash, and walked out with the ticket in hand." She called her manager, who approved it once I showed my ID, and explained there was a pending legal dispute. It took less than 10 minutes for her to print the still a grainy but clear photo of me, wallet open, handing over a $5 bill with the scratcher lying on the counter, my hand hovering above it. I nearly cried when I saw it, because there I was, not invisible, not a burden, a real person caught on camera in the middle of a moment that proved everything. I thanked Eliza, slipped the print into a manila folder, and walked the 6 blocks to the public library. The air was dry, crisp, and a little cool in the shade. My knees ached, but I didn't care. The librarian, a soft-spoken woman named Carla, recognized me and led me to a computer near the window. I plugged in my flash drive, opened a blank email, and began attaching everything. The receipt from the gas station. The original photo I'd taken of the ticket. The store footage still image, a screenshot of the timestamp and metadata from the phone, and finally the video Amber in my room removing the ticket from my knitting bag. I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing the subject line, "Fraudulent claim, proof of original ownership." I took a deep breath and hit send. The confirmation email came 22 minutes later. "Thank you for your submission. Your materials have been received. Our Claims Investigation Division will respond within 3-5 business days. Based on preliminary review, your documentation appears valid." I stared at those words, "appears valid." 3 syllables that hit like thunder. I printed the email, folded it, slipped it next to the receipt. Then I walked home. When I returned, Travis and Amber were sitting at the kitchen island dressed in business casual. His laptop was open. Her makeup was perfect. "Where have you been?" Amber asked. Casual tone clipped words. "Library," I said. "You didn't say anything," Travis muttered. "You didn't ask," I replied. I poured myself a glass of water, sat down across from them, folded my hands. They exchanged a glance. "Mom," Travis said slowly, "you didn't file anything, did you? I mean, we talked about this. You gave us the ticket. You just don't remember. There's no need to complicate things. Gaslighting textbook." Amber jumped in. "Look, we just want to do what's right. We were going to give you part of it. But if you start filing claims and creating conflict, the whole payout could get held up. None of us win then." I stared at them both, so sure of their control, so confident I would fold. I said nothing, just sipped my water and walked away. Because at that moment the truth was no longer between us, it was with the state, and that made all the difference. That night they toasted again, whispered in the living room. I heard the click of celebratory glasses, the buzz of another package delivery. I didn't interrupt. I didn't speak, because the next part wasn't mine to say. It was theirs to hear. 3 days later, I received the official letter from the Arizona Lottery Commission. It was thick, stiff paper. My name typed clearly at the top. "Dear Ms. Merritt, we have completed our initial investigation into the disputed Wild Chance claim dated Tuesday's date. After reviewing the submitted photo evidence transaction receipts, store security footage, and accompanying materials, we have confirmed your identity as the rightful owner of the ticket. The claim previously filed by Mr. Travis Merritt and Ms. Amber Holloway has been rejected. You are now recognized as the legal and sole claimant of the $11.5 million prize. Please contact our office within 10 business days to begin the disbursement process. Sincerely, Arizona State Lottery Division. I read it 3 times. Then I folded the letter, placed it back into the envelope, and tucked it in the drawer beneath the cutlery tray. The same one Amber always said was junk. It felt poetic. At dinner, I served myself. 1 plate, 1 chair, 1 calm silence. Travis came home late. Amber followed close behind her phone pressed to her ear. They weren't smiling this time. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but the words didn't come. They knew. They had called the office, and someone had already told them. The ticket was claimed, the file was closed, and the winner wasn't them. It was me. The house felt different after the letter arrived. Not louder, not more tense, just thinner, like something vital had been drained out of the walls. Like the truth had seeped through the floorboards and made it impossible for anyone to breathe easy. I didn't say anything, not one word, but they knew. They moved differently now. Amber's footsteps were sharper, faster. Travis didn't linger in the kitchen the way he used to. He'd open his laptop, stare at it, close it again. They whispered more than they spoke, and when they did speak to me, it was with a sickly sweetness that couldn't mask the panic behind their eyes. "Hey, Mom," Travis said one morning, pouring himself a glass of orange juice, just wondering if maybe we misunderstood something. Maybe you didn't mean to file anything. Maybe it was a mistake. I stirred my oatmeal and didn't look up. He cleared his throat. "We could, make this a win-win. I mean, you wouldn't want this money to divide the family." Divide the family. As if they hadn't already done that with a smile and a lie. Later that day, I received a message request on Facebook. Yes, I still used it though, mostly to check in on old high school friends and the library's book club page. The message was from Amber's sister, Caitlin. "Just saw what's going on. If it's true, I'm sorry. I always thought you were kind to Jenna. They shouldn't have done that to you." I stared at the screen fingers hovering over the keyboard, but I didn't reply. Instead, I watched the quiet unraveling begin. That evening, I walked down to the public library again. Carla greeted me at the front desk with a smile, though I could see she was curious. The story was starting to ripple out. "Is it true?" she asked softly. "That the lottery office? That they ruled in your favor?" I nodded. She didn't press. Just offered me the computer near the window again, the one I always preferred because the light hit the desk gently in the afternoon. I opened my inbox. The Arizona Lottery Commission had sent a follow-up, confirming the ticket's payout date. I was scheduled to receive my check in person, privately, securely, with an attorney present. I chose the anonymity clause for elder claimants, not because I was hiding, but because I didn't owe anyone a performance. I printed the email, folded it twice, slipped it into my purse. That was when Carla leaned over the divider between the desks. "June, have you seen this?" She turned her monitor toward me. It was a Facebook post from Amber, a photo of her and Travis on the front steps, arms around their daughter Jenna, looking solemn. The caption read, "Sometimes the people you trust the most will stab you in the back. We're devastated to share that Travis's mother stole our winning lottery ticket. We tried to talk it through with love, but she's confused and sadly greedy. Please pray for our family." I stared at the post, not in shock, not even in anger, just in awe, because there it was, their last card. When they couldn't steal quietly, they tried to shame publicly. The comments came fast, supportive at first, unbelievable. She should be ashamed. Take her to court. But by the next morning, everything shifted. Someone, likely one of Carla's teenage sons, leaked the store footage image, then the metadata, then the email I'd shown at the printer. One of the library patrons who worked at the local paper recognized me, quietly confirmed the story, and released an article with the headline, "Tucson Grandmother Outsmarts Son and Daughter-in-Law in Lottery Dispute with Proof." They didn't name me. But they didn't have to. The details were all there, and so was the video. A blogger who focused on elder abuse picked up the story and uploaded the camera clip Amber in my room, taking the ticket. No music, no dramatization, just quiet footage, raw, undeniable. The comment sections turned like desert wind. This isn't elder confusion. This is elder exploitation. She didn't steal it. She saved it. Hope she never speaks to them again. Amber deleted her post. Travis locked down his profile. Jenna's name disappeared from the About section on their page. But the damage was done. A week later, Travis lost his job. His company released a carefully worded statement. "We are committed to upholding values of trust and integrity." Effective immediately, Mr. Merritt is no longer affiliated with our firm. Amber, who had been volunteering on the PTA committee at Jenna's school, was asked to step back, then to resign. A parent at the school, Melissa, who I'd once given cookies to at a fundraiser, posted on her personal page, "What kind of example is this for our kids? We don't reward lies." Even the neighborhood Facebook group turned icy. People who used to wave to them at the mailbox now crossed the street. Someone posted a meme with a photo of a doormat that read, "Wipe your feet unless you're family." I didn't post anything. I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't share. I just sat in my usual chair at the library, sipping vending machine coffee, watching it all play out like a storm I no longer had to walk through. They had written their story. I had simply let the truth finish it. One afternoon, I found a plain envelope tucked into the mailbox at the library's front desk. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Travis's handwriting. "You win. We're leaving Tucson." I folded it, slipped it next to the lottery confirmation letter, not out of sentiment, just as a reminder that truth doesn't shout. It stands, and it outlasts everything. The house was quiet for days after Travis and Amber left. No notes, no goodbyes, just silence and an echo of their absence that felt less like loss and more like relief. I walked from room to room, not looking for them, but for myself. I found my old tea kettle behind the Instant Pot they never let me use. I found my photo albums tucked beneath a pile of holiday decorations left dusty and bent. I found my knitting needles still wrapped in the yarn I'd been using the night before everything changed. And slowly I started packing. Not out of fear, not out of shame, but because I had no reason to stay in a house where I had been made invisible. I didn't want the kitchen they mocked me in. I didn't want the living room where they toasted their lies. I didn't want the walls that had listened while I was silenced. So I made a call to a local real estate agent. Told her I wanted a one-story home, nothing flashy, quiet street, natural light, close to the library, and a grocery store that still printed receipts. 2 weeks later, I stood on the porch of a small adobe-style bungalow at the edge of Prescott Valley. White trim, red mailbox, 2 steps that creaked when it rained. It was perfect. I paid in full. No mortgage, no shared title, no one else's name on the deed. Just June Merritt printed in bold black ink. That was the first time I exhaled fully in months. I moved in on a Tuesday morning carrying only what mattered. My teapot, my yarn, the knit blanket Jenna had given me when she was 5, and tucked inside a folder marked, "Important the letter from the Lottery Commission," and Travis's final note. "You win. We're leaving Tucson." I didn't smile when I read it again. I didn't cry either. I just folded it and placed it next to my power bill. Because this home, this life, I'd built it without them. And it didn't need repairing. Each morning I boiled water for tea mint leaves from the small pot on my windowsill. I sat by the front window in my favorite armchair legs, curled under me, watching the sunlight shift across the rug. I knitted again not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Not for anyone, not for holidays or thank yous, just for me. Each stitch was like a reminder, you survived this. You're still here. Some people think healing happens in hospitals or therapy rooms. For me, it started with a spoon stirring sugar into tea. with the sound of silence that wasn't lonely but free. No more being careful with my words, no more waiting for permission to speak, no more being treated like an inconvenience in a life I helped build. One afternoon, I took a small photo frame and placed it on the mantel. Inside was a printed still from the gas station security footage, the moment I handed over the $5 bill, eyes tired but smiling. Underneath, I added a small wooden plaque I burned myself with a craft pen from the hobby store. They toasted their luck. I kept the truth. Every time I pass that photo, I stand a little straighter, because it's not just proof of what happened, it's proof that I didn't disappear even when they tried to erase me. The neighbors introduced themselves one by one. Mrs. Patterson from next door brought muffins, still warm in the tin. The mailman waved each morning and called me Miss June. The librarian in Prescott, who looked like Carla's cousin, remembered my name by the second visit. No one asked about the money. No one asked about Travis or Amber. They only asked how I liked the light in the mornings, if I preferred chamomile or peppermint, if I'd like to come to the Thursday knit and chat at the senior center. I said yes, and I meant it, because that's the thing about starting over late in life. You stop needing permission. You stop asking to be invited in. You simply arrive, and if someone opens the door, you step through. If not, you build your own. I started sleeping through the night again, not because everything was fixed, but because everything was finally mine. One morning, while trimming back the rosemary bush by the porch, I spotted a little girl across the street watching me from a bicycle. Her ponytail bounced when she waved. For a second, I thought of Jenna. My chest tightened, but not with pain, with memory. Jenna hadn't written, hadn't called. Maybe she didn't know the full story. Maybe she wasn't ready. And that was okay. Sometimes love waits, quietly, like a light left on in case someone finds their way home. If she ever knocked on my door, I'd answer. I wouldn't forget what had happened, but I wouldn't hold the door closed either. Because I didn't rebuild this life out of spite, I rebuilt it out of truth. And truth has space for peace, even if no one ever apologizes. There's a certain kind of silence that creeps in when you've been made to feel like you no longer matter. I know that silence. I lived in it. And for a while I believed that maybe being quiet was the only way to keep peace. But what I've learned is this peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's surrender. The moment I chose to speak up, not with shouting, but with truth, I started to rebuild something that couldn't be taken from me. Not a house, not a check, but dignity. If there's one thing I'd want you to take from my story, it's this. You are never too old to begin again, and your voice matters even when others try to talk over it. Whether you're 38 or 78, it's never too late to reclaim your space, your name, your truth. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone or of yourself, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to our channel. Because here we don't just tell stories, we honor them. And sometimes all it takes to change everything is to finally believe yourself again.